Alright, quick fact. Vin Diesel plays Dungeons and Dragons. Figured people didn't know that. Or they did. Let's look into Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Come on, show the movie! Hey, down in front!
9!
So Dungeons and Dragons is a fantasy action comedy movie which is based around the role-playing board game. So basically this movie is a heist movie. Basically a group of characters get together to steal a treasure from a leader of a kingdom who happened to be a former associate of them who also has this very powerful sorcerer at his side. First of all, I want to clarify as well that I've never actually played Dungeons & Dragons, but I am familiar with how the game works and also the rules that you have to do. And I have seen it a lot in a lot of pop culture stuff like Stranger Things. So, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of better than nothing. But when I do watch this movie, I actually do understand the things that are going on in this movie, especially when a lot of Dungeons & Dragons fans are familiar with some of the things, side quests, and also items and stuff that the characters do. First of all, I didn't really have high expectations for this movie as well. I mean, think about the early 2000s Dungeons and Dragons movie. Like, that was horse. But honestly, like, watching this movie, I was actually surprised. Like, I was actually very entertained watching this movie. First of all, I want to talk about the cast that's actually in this movie as well. Like, you got Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Justin Smith, and Sophie Lillis in this movie, playing the main characters in this movie. And basically, Chris Pine's character, he's like a thief type of character. You also got Michelle Rodriguez, who's like this barbarian muscle type of character. You also got Justin Smith, who's basically a sorcerer, and you also got Sophie Lillis, who's basically an animal shapeshifter, kind of similar to an animagus from Harry Potter, but can shift into more than one animal. We also get Regine Page in this movie as well. He plays a Palantir type of character in this movie. Now, he is in it for some important scenes, but he isn't really in it that much. Now, I also want to talk about Hugh Grant's character. Now, I kind of feel like Hugh Grant in this movie is just kind of playing Hugh Grant. Like, probably my favorite Hugh Grant performance was him in The Gentleman, but in this one, like, you kind of, like, when I mean by, like, Hugh Grant's playing Hugh Grant in this movie, you can kind of understand what I mean. And also, I feel like when he's on screen as well, like, some of his jokes that he was doing kind of felt like that they were just written and weren't really delivered naturally, where it's the opposite of Chris Pine's character, where yeah, Chris Pine, to me, is probably the biggest standout in this movie, considering that, like, every time a joke comes along, or his dialogue, it does flow a lot more naturally, and you'll notice that throughout the movie. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting how I saw that comparison. Now, another thing that really surprised me as well was the action scenes. Like, I was actually surprised how much the action scenes kept me entertained as well. Like, there's a lot of great fight choreography, like, type of, you know, sword play and a lot of action that's involved in this movie, like, especially, mainly the ones that don't involve the special effects, but when you're watching it as well, like I said, it's not like, it's like quick cuts or shaky cam, it is like long, one-shot takes as well, and also, there's barely any, like, back and forth cutting, like, it's just straight up action, you know, and it's not too bad of action scenes, and it's not like one of those generic action scenes that would just like, it's like rinse, repeat each time. Like, there's always something different involved in each action scene. Now, also, like I said as well, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but however, I am familiar with the rules and how it works. And watching this movie, like, you can get a lot of details and references to Dungeons and Dragons. Like, for example, there's a moment where, like, they have to cross a bridge, and basically the characters are sort of interacting with each other as to, okay, how are we going to cross this bridge? You know, are we going to use this spell? Or, like, oh, we need to do this pattern. Or, oh, I should throw this object so we can swing across, you know, yada, yada, yada. So, I love that it's got those little ideas of that. And also, it's got, like, heaps of things involved, like quests, you know, magical items, you know, weapons, and, you know, magical artifacts that you need to progress through the story, which is pretty much exactly what Dungeons & Dragons has when you're playing that role-playing game. Now, look, as much as I did enjoy watching this movie, it does have its little flaws as well. Like, for example, there are some moments where I feel like the CGI is a bit hit or miss. Like, there's some moments where I thought, oh, that actual transition from practical to CGI actually worked really well. And then there's other times where you're just like, yeah, it's a bit cartoonish, too cartoonish looking. And look, like I said as well, like, I mean, like, the ideas of some of the clearly used CGI stuff that was involved in this movie, I felt like it could have been a little bit improved on and would look a little bit better if it had a bit more time to improve on. But also, just keep in mind too, I looked at the budget as well after I've seen this movie. The budget was around like $150 million, so I am kind of surprised that like some of the CGI could have been a bit polished, but overall, like, it is one of those like minor complaints, but it is very noticeable. But also, what I really do enjoy about watching this movie as well is that a lot of the characters, they're not like same type of characters, like similar to, you know, like a Suicide Squad where it's like, you know, like the original Suicide Squad where they're all brawlers and stuff like that. No, like one's like a thief who can pretty much weasel his way out of anything. Another one's like a muscle for hire. Like I said, another one's a sorcerer. Another one's a palantir. Another one's like a shapeshifter. So they all have their own like useful skills that they can use. And also a lot of the characters involved in this movie, I didn't find too boring or like didn't really seem to feel that they were very unlikable. No, like these were really likable characters. And I felt like their chemistry was pretty okay. Like, I mean, it's not like really too strong, but they do work well with each other throughout this entire movie. Now, overall with this movie, like I specified, I do enjoy the characters involved in this movie. I do love the action scenes that were involved as well. I love that it's not a movie that I didn't feel like I was bored watching. In fact, I didn't actually mind spending the money to actually go and see this movie. Now, I will say this, I wish Hugh Grant's character had a bit more room to play involved in this movie as well. And also, like I said, the CGI is a bit 50-50 for me. But overall with this movie, I do feel like it's a movie you guys will like, but it's going to be a movie I'm probably going to watch every now and then. But what did you guys think of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow my socials up here as well. And as always, as I say at the end of these videos, give me some goddamn M&Ms.
Miss Hoover, the movie's over.
Down in front!